Hey folks. Had a really interesting session today on the teacher training program that I'm doing. And several things kind of stood out. For one thing, as I spoke about a couple days ago on my post, I forget if it was 3 days, probably Monday's post, I was really conscious of how I, as a teacher, was holding space, creating space, listening rather than speaking. If you caught my last post, I've had kind of a series of experiences, I'd say, and a recent bit of feedback and reflection that was really helpful in helping me see a pattern that basically arises when I get any feelings of insecurity or a feeling of I don't know what to do next, sort of turns into a barrage of speaking, a barrage of trying to verbalize something. And what showed up today as I was describing this to the other people on the call was that it's like you can tell it's a mental habit when it feels like a test. It feels like I'm trying to get the right answer on a test, and I keep getting feedback that, whether accurately or not, communicates to me that I'm getting the answer wrong. And so I just keep trying to pass the test. And that's how we know we're in mind land rather than awareness land, rather than having access to consciousness. Because likely there's either no right answer of the sort that my mind is grasping for, or there is an answer, but it has nothing to do with the direction that my mind is going, because my mind is trying to solve the wrong problem. It's trying to give me a feeling of having said it correctly when the answer actually lies in the other person. It's an answer that I could only ever receive rather than manufacture. So all of that was kind of online today, and I felt myself working in a different way, and I felt myself, therefore, I think, receiving more, able to see a little more, and certainly not perfect. And I think that part of why it's satisfying to even experience a limited amount of this is because it indicates that there's another way. It indicates that there's a way of engaging that's just far deeper than what I've habitually done so far, and that's exciting. That's a really exciting thing to feel. So that was a very kind of positive experience today. And something else came up which was related. This is kind of a tangent. It was something that came out of something that Madeline said in giving feedback to another student, which is one of the hallmarks of mastery is when we can move effortlessly and effectively and as necessary between a macro perspective of a wide, big picture perspective and a micro perspective. And piano practice and piano work is a wonderful way to practice that process and to just see it in action, because there's so much detail that goes into playing a piece of music even pieces of music that aren't that difficult, there's an incredible level of detail going on in terms of the technique. And when you get into really highly virtuosic pieces, you're talking about some of the most fine, detailed awareness that I think ever happens in human beings. I think that it's really a profoundly intricate practice, the playing of piano. And at the same time, there's this macro emotional world that's being created and an emotional journey that's taking place over the course of the whole, which is equally important. And you can't do that. That journey is affected by the micro, and the micro is in relationship to the macro. So there's this. It's a really wide gamut of. It's a wide net that our awareness has to cast in order to really address, in order to really kind of work effectively with someone on a piece of music. It's quite a thing. And but even beyond just the piano, I was really struck by that description of mastery as you know, it's mastery is one of the signs of mastery is when we can move immediately and without, you know, at the right time. You know, one of the things that happens to us as artists, or that can happen to us, is that we can get stuck on one level. And this definitely happens in my piano practice. It's definitely something I've learned to observe in myself, that I'll practice a piece and my focus will remain kind of on the technical level. I've talked about this, I think, in previous posts. It's easy to get. It's almost like I start a piece with a certain broad awareness, and then as I work on it, my mind kind of narrows the scope of inquiry down to a kind of tight and narrow beam of focus. And that may be necessary. I mean, it is necessary, as I was saying, for all the reasons I mentioned, because those details are there. Those details are and they're not, they can't be ignored. You're not going to get around them if you really want to effectively perform the piece. But if we get stuck there, or if we're not able to kind of move our awareness, it's really that's the thing. It's a practice of using awareness, which is so much fun as a discipline. It's a practice of moving, you know, when it's when the issue is in the micro, addressing the micro. When the issue is in the macro, addressing the macro. Knowing how to skillfully shift our own focus between those two things, or how to layer our practice so that all of the different levels of awareness are baked into so we're programming effectively at every level. We have to program that micro really effectively. You have to program the next level effectively. You have to program the highest level effectively. And it's kind of like putting layers of paint on a painting or on a house, or putting layers on a cake so that it's a beautiful, tall, sophisticated structure. Any number of images come to mind, a lot of them food-based for some reason right now. Wonder if I'm hungry. But it's really inspiring to me to think of mastery that way, and to just provoke myself to move my awareness in that way. Because this is something that doesn't just apply to the creative field. It applies to parenting. It applies to relationships. There are so many ways in which conflict dissolves when we understand that the other person we're communicating with is just looking at a different level of the issue. And, you know, again, kind of my tendency is to get tight and focused, and letting myself broaden, and even just having like little reminders in my day to broaden, to sure use that laser beam that is one of my strengths, but don't lose sight of the things that it excludes, and remind myself that those are there, because it may be that another tool would easily fix the problem, or it may be that there isn't even a problem if I'm looking from the right level, you know? So kind of a beautiful extension of the last couple days of this practice of receptivity. So yeah, that's where I am today. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a wonderful day. I appreciate you. Much love. See you tomorrow.